In 2018, two NASA scientists asked a question that sounded more like science fiction than science. If an industrial civilization had existed on Earth millions of years before humans, would we even know? Their answer was disturbing. Probably not. Because Earth does not preserve history. It destroys it. Continents are recycled. Oceans erase themselves. Mountains rise, collapse, and turn to dust. And over millions of years, even entire civilizations could disappear without leaving behind a single visible ruin. But then, scientists found something strange. Chemical scars in the geological record. Sudden climate collapses. Impossible structures. Ancient maps. Stories repeated across every civilization on Earth. And when all of those pieces are placed together, they begin to form a picture. A picture that raises one terrifying possibility. Something may have existed here before us. And tonight, we follow the evidence. 4.5 billion years. That is how old the Earth is. Not human civilization, not humanity itself, the Earth. If the entire history of the planet were compressed into a single 24-hour day, human civilization would appear in the final fraction of a second before midnight. Everything we have ever built would exist for less than the blink of an eye. Now think about what that means. Complex life has existed on Earth for more than 500 million years. Dinosaurs ruled this planet for 165 million years. Mammals have existed for over 200 million years. And yet somehow, according to the official story, intelligence only emerged once, right at the very end. That alone is strange. Because intelligence is not magic. It is an evolutionary adaptation. Tool use appears throughout nature. Social organization appears throughout nature. Communication, memory, cooperation, problem solving, all of it already exists in primitive forms across countless species. So the question becomes unavoidable. If Earth had hundreds of millions of years to produce intelligent life, why would it happen only once? That question led two scientists, Adam Frank and Gavin Schmidt, to propose what became known as the Silurian Hypothesis. Not a theory claiming ancient reptile civilizations existed, a thought experiment, a scientific question. If an industrial civilization had appeared millions of years ago, what traces would it leave behind? At first, the answer seems obvious. Cities, roads, machines, monuments. But geology does not work on human timescales. Over millions of years, tectonic plates shift. Entire continents move. Oceans rise and fall. Wind strips away mountains. Subduction zones drag entire sections of crust into Earth's mantle, where everything melts. After enough time, a civilization would not remain buried. It would be erased completely. The only things that might survive are chemical fingerprints, tiny anomalies trapped inside layers of rock. And that is where things become uncomfortable. Because scientists already know what our civilization will leave behind. A sudden spike in carbon, plastic particles embedded in sediment, artificial radioactive isotopes, mass extinction, ocean acidification. A civilization ending in environmental collapse would leave behind a very specific geological signature. And when researchers looked into Earth's deep history, they found one. 56 million years ago, something happened to this planet. Something catastrophic. Global temperatures suddenly exploded upward by as much as 8 degrees Celsius. The Arctic became subtropical. Palm trees grew near the poles. Ocean ecosystems collapsed. Entire species vanished. And buried inside the rock from that period is a massive carbon isotope anomaly. a sudden chemical scar showing that enormous amounts of carbon flooded into the atmosphere in an extremely short period of time. Scientists call it the Paleocene-Eocene thermal maximum, the PETM, and it looks disturbingly similar to what modern civilization is doing right now. The official explanation involves volcanic activity and methane release. Massive eruptions may have triggered runaway warming that destabilized methane trapped beneath the oceans. That explanation is considered the most likely. But here is the part that matters. The chemical fingerprint left behind by the Paleocene-Eocene thermal maximum is extremely similar to what an industrial civilization burning fossil fuels would create. Not proof, but similarity. Enough similarity that Frank and Schmidt admitted something unsettling. If a civilization had caused an event like this millions of years ago, modern science might not be able to tell the difference. And suddenly the question changes. Not, did a civilization exist before humans? But, would we even recognize the evidence if it did? Because Earth does not archive history. It buries it. And sometimes, it burns it away entirely. Then, roughly 12,800 years ago, something happened again. And this time, it may have happened within human memory. At the end of the last ice age, Earth was warming rapidly. Massive glaciers were retreating. Sea levels were rising. Human populations were expanding into newly opened lands. Then suddenly, the warming stopped. Temperatures crashed. In some regions, average temperatures may have dropped by more than 10 degrees Celsius in just decades. The planet plunged back into near-glacial conditions for over 1,200 years. Scientists call this event the Younger Dryas, and what caused it remains one of the most controversial debates in modern science. The mainstream explanation involves meltwater flooding into the Atlantic Ocean, disrupting global ocean currents and triggering abrupt cooling. But another theory emerged in 2007, a comet. Researchers studying sediment layers dating to the Younger Dryas boundary discovered something strange. Nanodiamonds. Shocked quartz. Microscopic spherules formed by extreme heat. Iridium anomalies associated with extraterrestrial impacts, and evidence of massive fires occurring across huge portions of the Northern Hemisphere at roughly the same time. The proposal was explosive. A fragmented comet may have struck or exploded above Earth approximately 12,800 years ago. The impact could have triggered global fires, atmospheric dust clouds, sudden cooling, ecosystem collapse, and the extinction of countless large species. Mammoths vanished, giant sloths vanished, saber-toothed cats vanished, entire ecosystems disappeared. And at the same moment, one of the most advanced prehistoric cultures in North America vanished too. The Clovis people. Their sophisticated stone technology suddenly disappeared from the archaeological record, as if something interrupted history itself. The impact theory remains controversial, but in recent years, more evidence has appeared. Possible craters, more impact markers, more burn layers, more geological anomalies, enough that the theory refuses to die. And then archaeologists discovered something that made the entire mystery even stranger. A place that should not exist. Göbekli Tepe, southeastern Turkey, a hilltop older than civilization itself. When archaeologists began excavating the site in the 1990s, they uncovered enormous T-shaped limestone pillars arranged in giant circles. Some weighed over 20 tons. Many were covered in intricate carvings of animals, symbols, and abstract imagery. The site dates to roughly 11,600 years ago. Older than Stonehenge, older than the pyramids, older than agriculture itself. And that is the problem. According to the official timeline, humans at this point were still hunter-gatherers. Small nomadic groups without cities, metal tools, writing, or organized civilization. Yet somehow, they built one of the most sophisticated monumental sites on Earth. The builders quarried massive stone blocks, transported them, carved them with precision, organized huge labor forces, and designed the site using advanced geometric planning. All before farming supposedly existed. Göbekli Tepe shattered the traditional sequence of human history. For decades, archaeologists believed civilization emerged like this. Agriculture first, then villages, then religion, then monuments. Göbekli Tepe reversed the order. The temple came first, which raises a terrifying possibility. What if the people who built it already inherited knowledge from something older? Because the timing is impossible to ignore. Göbekli Tepe appears immediately after the Younger Dryas catastrophe, almost as if survivors emerged from a destroyed world and began building again. Some researchers believe one pillar at the site may even record a cosmic impact event in symbolic form, a warning preserved in stone, a memory, not of myth, but of catastrophe. And if that sounds extreme, Egypt becomes even harder to explain, because sitting beside the Great Pyramid is a monument that may not belong to the civilization we think built it, the Great Sphinx. According to mainstream Egyptology, the Sphinx was carved around 2500 BC, during the reign of Pharaoh Khafre. But in 1990, geologist Robert Schoch noticed something that changed the entire debate. The erosion patterns on the Sphinx enclosure walls did not match wind erosion from desert conditions. They matched heavy rainfall, deep vertical weathering, rounded channels, water flowing downward over long periods of time. The problem is obvious. The Giza Plateau has been arid for thousands of years. Heavy rainfall of that kind existed there only much earlier, during the end of the last ice age, potentially around 10,000 BCE, thousands of years before the Egyptian civilization officially existed. Schoch argued that the body of the Sphinx may be dramatically older than the accepted timeline, perhaps ancient beyond comprehension. The backlash was immediate. Egyptologists rejected the theory. Alternative explanations involving groundwater and salt weathering were proposed. But the mystery never disappeared, especially because another detail makes the Sphinx even stranger. Its head is too small, disproportionately small compared to the massive body beneath it. Some researchers believe the original head may have been recarved by later Egyptians after the monument had already weathered for thousands of years. If true, the Sphinx may not have originated with dynastic Egypt at all. And if that possibility sounds impossible, the next discovery becomes even harder to dismiss. In 1513, an Ottoman admiral named Piri Reis drew a map using older source materials gathered from across the ancient world. At the bottom of the map appears a mysterious southern landmass. Some researchers claimed it resembled Antarctica, not modern Antarctica, but Antarctica without its ice. The claims became wildly controversial. Most historians reject the idea entirely, arguing the landmass is simply a distorted extension of South America. Many of the more sensational claims surrounding the map have been heavily exaggerated. But the mystery surrounding ancient cartographic knowledge never fully disappeared. Because the deeper researchers looked into early maps, the stranger some of them became. There were fragments of geographical knowledge appearing centuries before official discovery. Coastlines seemed oddly accurate. There were repeated references to lands no civilization should have known existed. Again, None of it proves a lost civilization, but it continues the same pattern. Anomalies, whispers, fragments, pieces that do not fit cleanly into the official timeline. And beneath central Turkey, another impossible structure waited underground. An entire city, Derinkuyu. Discovered accidentally in 1963 after a homeowner knocked down a basement wall. Behind it lay tunnels descending deep into the earth. Then chambers, ventilation shafts, water systems, storage rooms, defensive doors, chapels, living quarters, an underground city capable of sheltering nearly 20,000 people. 18 levels deep, the engineering is astonishing. Fresh air circulates even at the lowest levels. Massive rolling stone doors could seal corridors from the inside. The city was designed not simply for hiding, but for surviving. The official explanation is that these underground cities were expanded over centuries to protect populations from invasions, and that explanation makes sense. But one question remains difficult to answer. Why go this deep? Why build entire civilizations beneath the surface? Because 18 underground levels suggest preparation for something more terrifying than raiders. It suggests fear of the surface itself. Some researchers connect these underground cities to catastrophic climate events at the end of the Ice Age. Others point toward volcanic disasters. But whatever the original reason, the message feels strangely consistent. At some point in the distant past, people believed survival meant going underground. And then there are the stories every civilization tells. Flood myths, destruction myths, civilizations ending in fire or water. A few survivors are rebuilding the world from ruins. The Sumerians told it. The Hebrews told it. The Greeks, the Hindus, the Maya, the Hopi, the Chinese, the Norse. Hundreds of cultures, separated by oceans and continents, all repeating variations of the same memory. The world ended. The waters rose. Everything was destroyed, and humanity began again. Mainstream historians argue that these stories emerged independently because floods are common human experiences, and they may be right. But there is another possibility. At the end of the last ice age, sea levels rose by more than 120 meters. Entire coastlines vanished beneath the ocean. Massive regions of habitable land disappeared forever. If advanced human settlements existed near ancient coastlines, they would now lie hundreds of feet underwater. Gone. Hidden beneath oceans we have barely explored. Which means something terrifying may be true. Not that an advanced global civilization definitely existed before us. There is no conclusive evidence for that. But that Earth may have erased entire chapters of history we no longer remember. Civilizations, cultures, knowledge, destroyed by climate catastrophe, rising seas, impacts, volcanic collapse, or simply time itself. And maybe the strangest part of all this is realizing how fragile civilization actually is. We like to think of modern humanity as permanent, untouchable. But the geological record tells a different story. Earth resets itself, again and again. Species rise, species vanish. Entire worlds disappear beneath rock and ocean. And if another civilization once stood where we stand now, they probably believed they were permanent too. Maybe there was nothing before us. Maybe every anomaly has a conventional explanation. Maybe every mystery eventually collapses under closer inspection. But maybe. History is far older than we think. Maybe the evidence was never meant to survive. And maybe the real question is not whether something existed before humanity, Maybe the real question is this: if an entire civilization vanished once already, how long would it take before ours vanished too? Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more history mysteries.